I'm Tashie Bhuiyan. I'm a 22-year-old author. I live in New York City. I just recently graduated from college, just kind of vibing at home now because of the pandemic, but my debut novel is a YA contemporary romance and it's called Counting Down with You. It comes out on May 4th, 2021, and it's a fake dating novel. It follows the main character, Karina Ahmed, after her parents leave to go to Bangladesh for 4 weeks, and she's left at home and she somehow gets roped into a fake dating facade with the bad boy of her high school, Ace Clyde, and a lot of chaos ensues.
What was your writing process like? And how long did it take you to write it?
My process is not the usual process, I guess. I don't think anyone else would act as chaotically as that's like a nice way to say it. But I started writing it in March 2019 and I finished writing it in April 2019. So I wrote it over the course of 30 days and it was super intense. I came up with the idea in March 2019. So I started writing maybe like 2-3 weeks after I got the idea. But so I'd just read this book. It's like a craft novel called Story Genius, and it tells you like how to like kind of get to the heart of your book and stuff. So I just read that, and using that, I like plotted like kind of the internal journey that Karina would go on. So it wasn't like actually plotting the book, but more just like where Karina would start and where she would end. So I figured that out. And following that, then I was like, how can I make this a little spicy? Right. So I was like, okay, let me toss in some fake dating. Like, who doesn't love fake dating? That is like such a god tier trope, right? So after I'd like put together that, like once I knew the elements, I kind of just like made like a bullet point list of like what I wanted to include, etc., whatever. Like I wanted to really like wholesome grandmother relationship in it. I wanted like a diverse girl gang that would just like support Karina and help her, but also like call her out when she needed to be called out, all of that stuff. But so I started writing at the end of March and I finished exactly like 30 days later ish, I think. And that was like the first draft, and it was like 90,000 words, I think, then. And it was really chaotic because I remember at the time I was in college, like I was taking 6 classes and I was interning 3 days a week. So I was like in between my internship, in between classes, in between homework, in between like hanging out with my friends and stuff. Like I would just be sitting on my computer, like tapping away. I remember I would like get to my internship like super early and like sit in the Starbucks next door and just like type in the morning. And then I'd get to my internship and I'd like, do my internship, whatever. But then during my lunch hour, I pulled out my laptop again and then typed during that. And like, it would just be like in between like moments where I had free time, I would just be typing. And it was like NaNoWriMo during April. So like I had like a set goal of like write this many words per day, but I would always go like over the goal. Like I think one of the days I wrote like 8,000 words one day. So I was like doing like a lot. It was very extra of me. But yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. I had no idea you were able to write it so fast. The first draft.
Yeah, it was a lot.
I mean, some people like it takes them years to write the first.
I know. Yeah, it was just like the right story at the right time, I think. It was really fun. Like it was just pouring out of me. Like I didn't like go in with the goal of finishing it in 30 days, right? Because NaNoWriMo was 50,000 words in 30 days, but I had written 90,000, right? It was like, I think like by day 15 of NaNoWriMo, I'd already hit 50,000. So like then I just kept going after that. But it was like every day I was writing, like I was having such a fun time. Like I was just genuinely like enjoying myself. And I was like, oh well, like it's like I actually like it was my first ever contemporary novel, which is like I'd never written contemporary before then. I'd never written first person before then. So it was like completely new for me. Like I hadn't done first person, I hadn't done contemporary, like that was all like I'd never ever even tried to do anything like that. So I was like, oh, like I'm exploring, like I'm having fun. I've never done this before. This is cool. This is interesting. Obviously, it ended up being my debut novel, so it was a little more than just like for fun. But yeah, like it was like completely unexpected.
And what helped you to write the query letter and find the literary agents? Which websites?
Okay, so for the query letter, I I'm actually just like, I don't want to brag, but I'm actually like pretty good at writing query letters on my own. Like so before that I'd been an author mentor match, so I had to write a query letter for that as well. But like I had to like read a bunch of queries from like other, cause like, you know how like you can like look online, you can see authors different queries if you go on their website, whatever. I'd like read a bunch of them. And I was like, okay, like this sounds like doable. And like as soon as I like honed in that it was about stakes, like you have to make sure the stake is there, I was like, okay. So I just had to make sure the reader understands like what the decision is that Karina has to make. So for in her case, is this a spoiler? I don't think it's a spoiler. I'm just gonna say it. Okay. So in her case, like she's starting to decide whether between whether she wants to be a doctor, which her parents want her to do, or whether she wants to study English, which is what she wants to do, right? And so studying English obviously means being happy, like having the life that she wants to have, pursuing the things that she's interested in. But like being a doctor means making her parents proud and like living up to their expectations and not letting them down, right? And like that's like a hard decision to make, like whether you want to, you know, satisfy what your parents expect of you, whether you want to disappoint them and do what you want. So like that's kind of like what her stakes were. Like she didn't know what she wanted to decide, and like her parents are gone for these 4 weeks, so she has this chance to kind of explore herself and explore what she wants and how she wants to go about it, and whether this is a risk she wants to take, and if it is, like how she plans to go about it. So I was like, okay, if I can just get to the heart of that, like Karina is trying to make this decision, then like I can easily write like the query. So like my query was like essentially like the first paragraph was like kind of explain Karina's background. So it's like, oh, Karina does like everything her parents expect her to do. This is like, she's always lived like, she's like the perfect child, like for the golden child. She does everything her parents expect her to do. But then when they leave for 4 weeks to Bangladesh, she's like left alone with her grandma, and she's kind of thinking like, oh, like I'm kind of giving up the future I want for them. And so then she meets Ace, and like I said, chaos ensues or whatever, but it kind of opens her eyes, I think, a little to like how other people live their life, because Ace's whole thing is that he defies every single expectation anyone sets on him. Like if you were like, I'm trying to think, if you were like, oh, I like your leather jacket, he'd be like, anyways, I'm burning this, right? Like he would not, he's like, he doesn't care what other people think of him or what they expect from him or what they kind of want. So like Karina's like, you live like this? Like what? Right? So she's kind of thrown, but it opens her eyes, I think. Like he doesn't, at no point is he like forcing her to make any decision. Like he's just kind of quietly supporting her, but like seeing him live his life makes her kind of curious about like if she can maybe be a little brave, if she can be bolder, if she can be stronger and actually like make that decision to tell them. Although Ace thinks she's strong no matter what. But anyways, yeah, so like that was how I kind of came about like writing the query. So like the second paragraph essentially sets those stakes. Like Karina's opening her eyes, but she doesn't know if this is the right decision to make. And so like the end is kind of like Karina is like forced to make a decision, do what her parents want or be happy, essentially, right? So that was how I kind of went about writing the query. And for finding literary agents, I actually only queried 7. So I don't know how qualified I am to like talk extensively about finding literary agents, but I kind of went through and looked at like the agents that represented authors that I liked, right? So I like queried like Susie Townsend and like Tao Lee and like Taylor Haggerty and like all those people, and they were all super lovely, you know, but I kind of went with that mindset, and I was like, okay, well, like when I actually queried in May 2019, so a month after finishing the book, because I live like this. So I hadn't like done like extensive research into the market. Like I obviously researched that like 7 people that I did choose, but I hadn't like thought further than that, because I was like, oh, they're probably gonna be with like they're probably gonna have the manuscript for like forever, so I can worry about it later, whatever. But then I got an offer in like 10 days, and I was like, oh. Wait a second. But so I think like I went through and looked at the authors that I enjoyed their work and their books and stuff and saw who they were represented by. And I also had like, since I was an author mentor match, I had a lot of new friends that I had gained through the program, and they also had like query knowledge. So like if I had suggested an agent, for example, and they were like, no, then at least like I was like, okay, not them then, like, you know, like, so I feel like publishing really is like a whisper network in terms of like making sure you don't kind of go the wrong path, and having like friends who are honest with you and like willing to tell you stuff like that. But like the way I found them was definitely through like people that I enjoyed reading from.
Who is your agent?
JL Sturmer. She is the best person alive. Oh my god, I love her. She's so cool. She is just like, oh my god, I just adore her. Like, she always gives me serotonin. Like, every time I talk to JL, I'm like, wow, I'm living my best life. Like, she's like the perfect agent I could have asked for. Like, I love her. She's great.
What do you remember about the call?
Oh my god, the call was so like unexpected, I guess, right? Because I actually hadn't queried JL. I queried Susie Townsend, and she had sent my manuscript to JL, right? Because she like liked the premise, but I think maybe it was something too similar to her list. So she had like passed it on to her colleague JL, who also is at New Leaf. And JL had emailed me, and she was like, "Oh, like I know you don't know who I am, but like I'm enjoying your book, and like I represent these people, and like I really think like I really like what you're doing so far with this book." And then she had like done like a whole paragraph explaining like the things she'd liked, and I was like, OMG. So then it was kind of unusual. I wonder how much I'm allowed to talk about this. I feel like it's not like anything what I just don't know if it's like whatever. So I had no, I can't talk about that. Okay, sorry. Sorry.
Okay, no.
So when I got on the phone with her for the first time, it was really, really cool because like she started off, and I think she'd called the wrong number before she'd called me by accident, right? So she got on the phone and she was like, "Is this the right person? Because I accidentally called the wrong person. I just wanted to make sure this was the right person." And like already from like, as you can probably tell from my energy, like that's like kind of like the similar energy that she had. Like she was just so like bubbly and like excited to talk to me, and it was like so wholesome. And like we were on the phone for like an hour and a half. Like it was so long, and like she hadn't finished reading the book yet. So she hadn't it wasn't like an official offer. It was more like we were like, she was like, "I'm really enjoying this." And I was like, so then we got on the phone or whatever. And like we talked for an hour and a half without her even offering. So I was like, oh my God, like, ah. But then when she did offer, we got on the phone again and we talked again, and it was like still like A plus, like, oh my God. And when she actually offered, she sent the offer in an email. And like it was like an essay about everything she loved. Like it must have been like 10, 12 paragraphs where it was like talking about what she liked about Karina, what she liked about Ace, what she liked about their romance, what she liked about the family dynamics, what she liked about the friend group, like all these things. And I was just like, oh my God, like she gets it. Like she loved it. Like I could tell like she was so passionate about it. It was just so like, I love JL. God bless her.
What happened next?
So she offered in June because I got my off. Okay, so I queried in May. I got my first offer in May, and then I got JL's offer in June, and I signed with JL in June. And after June, like she sent me some revision. Like we got on the phone and she talked to me about her revision ideas, and they weren't like super extensive or anything. It was like, well, I guess I can't say because that would be a spoiler, but it was like small things. Like it was like she had like a bullet point list of like 3-4 things that like she wanted me to address, and she was like, "Oh, can you just like do it in red so she could look it over quickly?" And I was like 100%. And it was actually really funny because I write and work really fast. So she was like, "Oh, how long do you think like you would need? Like maybe like this much time?" And I was like, "Actually, I could do it in 3 weeks." And she was like, "Okay." So I finished revisions in July, and then we went on submission in July, and we sold my book in August.
Wow, that's such an amazing story. Like very.
Yeah, it was very like surreal. Like I was not, like I said, like I'd sent out the queries and I was like, whatever. Like I wrote this book in a month. Like nobody's gonna want to. And then 2 months later, I had a book deal, and I was like, I was not anticipating that.
Wow. When you were writing the first draft, were you focusing on things like dramatic question or I don't know, like beats, like your favorite tropes?
I definitely was not focusing on beats. I still have like a 3% idea of what story beats are, right? I mean, like, no, like I know what they are, but I don't know what, like, I feel like once I was talking to someone and they told me that I do it, like, I like do use story beats in my book, but like I do it unintentionally because I don't plan around story beats. Like I don't do that. So like they just kind of happen. What I was kind of focusing on, I think, was probably like, oh, that's actually a good question. What was I focusing on? I don't know if I was specifically focusing on anything. I had like done like an outline, and my outline was basically like everything happening in chronological order. So it was like 90 points, and it was like the first line would be like Karina's at the airport with her parents. Like the second point was like Karina goes to school and meets up with her friends who rib her about prom. The third point was like Karina goes to English class and meets with her English teacher, whatever, who asks her to do, etc., whatever, right? So like it wasn't like none of the points were like super in depth or extensive, but it was just like scene after scene after scene after scene. So I kind of just went down my list and like wrote each scene in correlation, and like, so I guess I was just focusing on getting to the end of the outline really, and then I kind of went back and read over to make sure like everything was coherent, everything. I actually, like I said, I'm an overwriter, so I kind of put like a lot of extraneous like fluff in it, like, you know, it'd just be cute things like Karina and Ace like teasing each other, but like had nothing to do with the plot, like, you know, like it was kind of just taking up space, but like why can't they just be happy? Why is everyone ruining, getting in the way of my vision? But so I had to like go back and like cut down stuff like that, where I did have like just like nothing that moved the plot forward, but like it was just fun for me to write. I was like, I'm having a good time, so who cares? But I actually, like, since writing Counting Down with You, I think I'm actually so much better at pacing, because that was obviously a pacing issue, because you have scenes that don't move the plot forward, so it's slows down the pacing. But now I think I'm actually pretty solid at pacing. Like I make sure that every scene that I write does move the plot forward in some way, or move the character development forward, or like whatever it is, like because I was able to learn that through making that mistake in Counting Down with You. So now I'm actually pretty solid at it, I think. But I don't think I was like specifically focusing on anything except for getting to the end of my outline.
Did you pitch it on Twitter in one sentence or two sentences?
No, I didn't do any pitch contests or anything like that. In my query letter, I said that it was the romantic dynamics of To All the Boys I've Loved Before meets the familial difficulties of the love and lives of Rukhsana Ali. So that was like my pitch, but I think like the quick way to pitch it would probably be Karina is tutoring the bad boy of her high school when he accidentally ropes her into a fake dating facade while her parents are gone for a month. So I think that's probably like the quickest way to pitch it. But I think like Counting Down with You is like kind of like, obviously I just pitched it, but I think it's like a difficult book to pitch in that obviously captures like the general plot of it, but I feel like there's so much heart in the book that's like hard to capture, because Counting Down with You, it's commercial, but it's like quieter, I think, because there's a lot of like Karina's like inner monologue and like her journey and stuff. Like that's like an integral part of the book. Like it's obviously a romance novel, but so much of it focuses on Karina's journey and how she's growing and gaining agency and all of that. So like that's like stuff you can't like capture in a tweet. Like, you know, it's like hard to like capture the nuance of like how that makes you feel. Like I feel like it's just like a warm hug, honestly. Like I feel like it's like someone holding your hand and like not letting go. Like it feels like kind of like that, I feel, because I feel like it's like a very like not rom-com, because it's not necessarily like super funny, I guess. Like it doesn't have like the plot isn't comedic based. Like I mean there are funny moments and stuff, but like it has like that kind of feel. Like, you know, like when you watch a rom-com and you're just sitting there and you're like like it has that kind of energy where you're just like reading it and you're like, wow, like this is just really sweet and like genuinely like touching and like all of that. Like I feel like it has that kind of feeling. Like it's like a book of hope, I think.
You mentioned the author-mentor match. Can you please elaborate on this experience and how did it help you in this writing?
Yeah, for sure. So the thing with author-mentor match, loved it. My mentor, Christine, amazing. We love her. She's an icon. Her name is Christine Colella. She's great. But so the thing with author-mentor match is that I got in March 2019. So you can kind of see how the timeline is kind of like, so I got into Author Mentor Match with a YA fantasy novel that I wrote, because I love writing YA fantasy as well. Like I told you, Counting Down with You was my first contemporary. So I got into Author Mentor Match with a YA fantasy novel that Christine chose, and she told me that she would get me my edit letter in a month. right? So she was like planning to get it to me on like May 1st, right? Because like we found out at the end of March. So I was like, I guess I'll just go write a book while I'm waiting for it. And then I wrote Counting Down with You, and then I got an offer for Counting Down with You. So like I didn't actually do a lot of the revisions for AMM, but like it just like it was like really fast, and like, you know, like I didn't anticipate that would happen and stuff. But like I genuinely love the community though. Like I think like having that community, having Christine, like Christine is the person who actually taught me what plot beats even are, because I was like, what is this? And she was like, oh sweetie, okay, here you go. But so she's like she's so lovely, and like whenever I had questions about like craft stuff, she would always answer. She like looked over my query and like pitch materials and whatever for Counting Down with You. Like she looked over the query, the synopsis and everything before I sent it. She like, it was actually really funny because I was kind of like, I thought the book was kind of like like I'd written the first draft in, finished it in April, and then Christine was like, I think you should sit on it for a few weeks, right? Because she was like, you know, like you just wrote it really fast as well. Like I think you should sit on it for a few weeks. And like if she hadn't said that, I honestly think I might have just like finished it and then revised it like the next day. But like I had like finals and stuff too. So she was like, just sit and like let it sink in for a minute. And I was like, okay, that's like a good idea. Like get a little distance from it. So I actually revised it in May, like in like 3 days. I actually revised it in May in like 3-4 days. And Christine was like, oh, like make sure you're not rushing, like take your time. And she was so valid for that advice, honestly. But I created like but Christine was so, I should have listened to her. Honestly, I should have listened. Well, I think I did, like I was, but like I didn't know what else Counting Down with You, like what else I could do with it. And obviously it did get an offer. So like, I think I was like kind of like on the right path with that idea. But I think Christine was just trying to look out for me and make sure like I didn't get like my heart broken, right? Because like what if I had just rushed it and like it wasn't good and like I was just trying to get it out of the way, like, you know. So like she's been so great for that. She's also so great for like moral support. Like when I did get my offer, I was like, oh my God, Christine, what do I do? And like she like helped me with all of that and like talked me through stuff and was such like, she gives such great advice. We're still friends right now. Like we were just talking the other day because she had asked me about my audiobook and stuff, which was like earlier this week. But so that was great. Like she as a mentor was great. Her notes for my YA fantasy were also great. Just sucks I never got around to it, I guess. But also the community that I got. So all the other AMM mentees, we all are like really close to each other. Like that was the first time I think I had talked to writers who were also pursuing publication, right? Like before that, like my friends, like some of them are writers, but like they're writing like fanfic or they're writing like short stories, like, you know, like it's not the same thing. So I like, that's the first time I got to talk to people who were also pursuing the same kind of path as me, and like having that sense of community and also getting like critique partners out of it, right? And like beta readers, because I remember 4 of them, Leah, Paige, Emily, and Kaylee, like they had read Counting Down with You like the day I finished writing the first draft. Like they read it then, and like they hadn't like read it in one day, but like I mean like they like as soon as I finished it, I sent it to them and they read it and they gave me such amazing notes and stuff. And like I definitely don't think like it would be as strong as it was without them, especially Leah. She's my critique partner now. Leah, like I'm so bad at cutting words, and Leah like helped me so much. Like she's literally like a goddess. Like we don't deserve her. Like she cut all these words for me. I bless her soul. But so having that sense of community was so great as a part of Author Mentor Match, like having all these people that supported me and understood where I was coming from and like understood like how hard it is to get published, right? Like if you tell someone like, oh, like I have a book deal in real life, they're like, oh, cool. Like they don't actually get like how hard it can be, right? To like write a whole book and then to find these agents to create and like all that, like, you know, like, so it was so nice to have that community. And like we're all like still friends today. Like we have a group chat with all of us in it, and it's like really great. But so I really loved being a part of Author Mentor Match. I actually just mentored in the last round, which is so wild, right? Like I was a mentee in round 6, and then I was a mentor in round 7. But my mentee, Crystal, she is so talented. Oh my God. Like her book is so good. Actually, right before this call, I was just looking over her synopsis, right? Because she's got planning to query soon. So that's like super exciting. So it's like really great to be able to give back to that community that honestly impacted a lot of how Counting Down with You kind of came to be. Because like without their guidance and like their support, like I don't know if it would have worked out the way that it did, you know? So that was amazing. I loved being a part of that. I would definitely recommend to everyone if they have a chance to like, if they have a manuscript ready by the deadline and stuff like that, I would definitely submit.
Is there anything else you would like to talk about?
I don't know. I'm supposed to get like my arc soon, right? So I'm so excited. Like I feel like I'm gonna pass out when I see them. Like I feel like I'm gonna open the box. I'm just gonna be like I'm so excited. Like it feels like everything is so real now, right? Because my book also went up on NetGalley last week, and I was like, oh my god, this means strangers are gonna be reading it. Like I'm like a little nervous, but like mostly excited because I'm like, oh my god, like that's a real book that people are reading. Like so I think that's so wild. Like it's like obviously like it's been real since the day like I signed the contract and stuff, but like it's like feeling more and more real I think as the days go by, like because I still feel like I'm just like a clown like in going to like school, like you know, like I feel like I'm still like living my life like the same way I always kind of lived it. So it doesn't like really feel like, oh, like I'm gonna be a published author, like you know, like it does but it doesn't. Like it feels like I'm just like the same person I kind of always was, which I guess like makes sense because I am, but like you know, like it doesn't feel like this like huge life-changing thing happened to me, like because like it hasn't like really sunk in, which is wild because the book comes out in like 7 months. But like every day, like now that like people can read it and people can request it and like the cover is live and like people are adding it on Goodreads and stuff, like the other day, like when I announced that the NetGalley thing went up, like so many people were tweeting me and were like, oh, I'm requesting it. And I was like, oh my god, these people I don't even know are gonna read the book. Like what? I remember when I followed my cover artist on like Twitter / Instagram, whatever, she had DM'd me and like she was like, oh, I love reading your book. And I was like, you read my book? Like, oh my god, what? But I was like, oh, that's like, she was so sweet. She was like, oh my god, like I really loved it, whatever, whatever. And I was like, that's so wild. Like people I don't know are reading it. What is that about? Oh my god, that's so crazy. But so I think that's just like, wow, like things are happening. Moves are being made. Like I'm an author. That's wild.
Any advice to aspiring authors?
Keep writing, right? I think like the thing is like you can't like focus on one book. Like I feel like that's a thing that a lot of people go through where they write a book for like 5 years and they don't want to move on to like something else. But like I think like you should keep writing, like you know, like you can, because you can always publish those books later that like you did write back then, like you can revise. Like I have a new book idea right now that I definitely can't talk about, but I am taking the characters from my first ever manuscript and putting them in the new book idea. So like I'm recycling like you know, like, and I think that's something like people need to like think about, that you can just like leave that book for a minute, write something new, something that might be fresher, something that might catch an agent's attention more, like you know, like something that you want to write, like you know, like don't focus just on one book or one story, like just keep writing and keep writing new stories and keep like moving forward and like just enjoy storytelling. I think like you know, like I think we learn more with each book we write as well. Like I have learned so much from every single book that I've written. Like I just told you how Counting Down with You has helped me with pacing, right? And like with every single book I've written 5 now. Yeah, I've written 5 now, and with every single book I've like learned more. So it's like wild. I don't know. Counting Down with You is my 3rd one. So since then I've written 2 more books, and both of those, like I feel like they are so much better because I had written Counting Down with You. So I think like just keep writing. I think that's probably my best advice.
Thank you so much.